Right, hello there. I am here with Howard Cooper of Rapid Change Works.
That's
He
the
likes
one.
to make these changes quickly. He's in a bit of a rush. You may well know who he is. He is a well-known anxiety busting expert, amongst other things. He's done bits of UK TV, radio, had a lovely podcast years ago. He's been in the industry a long time, always giving, contributing, and these days you may find him on TikTok. With you youngsters out
At Anxiety Beating Hacks.
at anxietybeatinghacks.com. See, I'm not even quite sure how to reference someone's channel on TikTok, but
Yeah.
anxiety beating hacks, lots of, short, punchy, useful content. But recently I got excited about something that Howard had released. I missed his presentation last year at the hypnosis convention. It was my first year off, but few of the headlines about the product, in fact, one particular review of it got me interested, and I went and bought it. I used it the same day. I've been using it ever since. I will say it's pretty rare that something new like that just jumps straight into my working repertoire, but the willingness ladder has done that. So thank you, Howard, for
Pleasure.
producing something so useful.
Oh,
What
thank you.
is the willingness ladder?
So, for me, the willingness ladder is a series of 6 questions to take people from I don't want that experience all the way through to I can look forward to it. And I just think it's one of the most versatile things that you can use in all sorts of different contexts. So, I started playing around with it specifically with anxiety. So,
Yep.
people who come and they go, I have intrusive thoughts and I don't want these thoughts. And because they always come with that same sort of fascination of help me get rid of this experience.
Yep.
And one of the big things that I have begun to notice now, I'm in my 20th year of working with people, I'm absolutely convinced more and more that often the perceived solution of the client is the problem. So if someone turns up and goes, Howard, the solution I need from you is to get rid of this thing,
Yep.
that's almost keeping the problem sort of rooted in the spot. And the way I explain that is, I mean, I think about it like this. If my son comes running into my bedroom and says, Daddy, Daddy, there's a monster under my bed, how effective would it be if I said, George, there's no monster, but whatever you do, don't look it in the eyes? What do you mean? Like, so it's there, it's real. And that's what happens. People have images, words, sensations in their body. They're not working for them. They come to a hypnotist or a therapist because
Yep.
they want someone to get rid of it. And actually, if we engage in that whole frame, I would argue we could be creating more suffering or compounding the idea that those images, words, sensations really have a hold over them.
Yeah.
So these
No,
six
it's
questions kind
very
of
easy,
release
isn't
that.
it, to with the best of intentions, to allow our clients not just their story, but their belief that I must be free of this. I must no longer have intrusive thoughts to be okay. In our effort to, just want to make them feel better, to jump on board with that, when in fact, maybe that's not a healthy approach to living.
Right.
So the natural position many of us adopt when we are experiencing something we're not enjoying or we don't like is to no longer want to have those thoughts. Let's say thoughts, feelings, whatever. We'll put it
Right.
all in the same category. So um, you said via these 6 questions, via this ladder, this process, we get to, what was it? I could look forward to having them. So that
Right.
seems like quite a leap if you were to just come out and say that to someone. Could you look forward to having these intrusive thoughts or these
Right.
anxious feelings? I guess the answer from most people would be a firm no.
It would be an absolute no,
Yeah.
for sure. Because, well, first of all, they never even thought of it that way.
Yeah.
How it's almost incredulous. How could I ever look forward to these intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
But for me, it's more about, can we get people into a place where they can look forward to having psychological resilience, to being in a place where they could have these thoughts appear and there's literally zero feeling attached to them.
Right.
And funnily enough, when someone gets to that place, the thoughts tend to stop anyway,
Right.
because the only reason that keeps them going is their total lack of being willing to have them.
And could we call that resistance? I mean, is that an act, a sort of low level activity of I can't do it, can't think about it, can't look at it.
Right. Yeah. I totally think that that's resistance is an apt word. I think of the brain as wanting to keep us safe. It's like a radar and it's scouting for danger. And if we have some resistance in the system, every time we resist something, it's like putting a big red flag in that thought.
Yep.
And therefore the brain's going to pay more attention to it. Whereas every time you can move into willingness or even total looking forward to, it's literally training the body to take the red flag out of said thought.
Yep.
And the whole radar kind of calms down. The threat response dissipates. But I do think, I mean, it's like, look, I used to work for 2 years. I was the lead presenter with Virgin Atlantic on their Flying Without Fear course. And because of that, I've seen lots of phobic flyers. And they always used to come and say the same stuff to me. Things like, Howard, make me like all the people who are okay flying, who, quote, never have a negative thought about flying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I'll give people experiments. I'll say, go and find someone who's okay with flying and say to them, be honest, have you ever had a negative thought about flying? And they'll all go, well, yeah,
Yeah.
of
Every damn
course.
time. Yeah.
Right. And then you say, okay, get curious. What technique do you use in order not to freak out or panic when that thought appears? And they all do this. They go,
Yeah.
It never even struck them they had to do anything.
Yeah.
But of course, the only difference between the terrified phobic flies is when the thought appears, they go, oh, I have to get rid of it, because they think there's some credibility to it.
Mm.
And so they push it away, or they don't like the feeling and they have to get rid of it because they attribute the feeling as meaning something about their future. Or now they're just locked into resistance and suffering. And for me, that willingness ladder is literally teaching the brain in I would say, half steps,
Yep.
in tiny little pieces by piece, how to go from I don't want this to changing the total relationship with their thinking that leads to psychological freedom and essentially being psychologically bulletproof.
Yep. 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 Great.
Which is not living in like total toxic positivity land.
So, it's not strictly speaking a hypnotic technique. There's no real effort to, hypnotize people and bombard them with suggestions. Through my lens of the world, especially the last couple of questions, there's lots of opportunity for suggesting, especially that where it ends in terms of the encouragement to the when they get to the point of willingness, that they're essentially removing these red flags. That
Right.
it's no longer going to be flagged as important. There's the opportunity for suggestion, but generally this is delivered in an entirely credible two-way conversation, albeit that exactly where it's going. So is that your session? Is that kind of a session one for you, or is it the discussion before something else that happens? How does it tend to go down?
There can be some pre-work to it,
Yep.
so setting it up, and I will be exploring with people, like, what are the thoughts? I like exploring what are the thoughts that are getting in the way of giving them the experience they want. I'm trying to find out where's the resistance in the system.
Yeah.
But then we'll look at the willingness ladder. We'll start looking at it, and it's kind of interesting because, I mean, I used to be much more of a direct hypnotist and do much more hypnotic sessions. We hypnotize someone, I put them into a trance. But I think of hypnosis as really getting someone's mind locked around an idea.
Yep.
And I find, certainly for my style and approach, having that kind of two-way conversation where I go off on little side turns.
Hmm.
And you've seen obviously the training and the way we do it, but you ask a question, and just as they're beginning to kind of explore that, I'll go off and tell a story,
Yep.
or do a demonstration, or do a thing, and just piece by piece, you're getting their mind locked and absorbed into a whole different frame. And for me, that's, I mean, you could call it conversational hypnosis.
Yeah, I
It's
probably
just
wouldn't.
no, probably not.
But no, it is. It's
But
quite strategic, isn't it? It's certainly
yes, yes,
a
yes.
strategic conversation, and the storytelling. There are
Right.
some laughs in there. Um, it's it's quite kind of under the radar in the sense that they suddenly, when you pick up on the question, one of your six questions again, it's kind of like, well, yeah, I see what, yeah, no, it's not a free choice. These kind of, suddenly they have a bit of realization, almost like a light bulb moment, that
Right.
may be completely different from, what you'd expect the consensus response to be when you ask someone, did you choose to think of that as an example? So very cool, very
Absolutely.
clever.
That's
Um,
cool.
and
I can only apologize for using the conversational hypnosis word. So please, I do
yeah, no,
apologize.
let's
It's
not open
just
up that can of worms.
woof.
Um, if it's ideas becoming responses, then I guess, anything could be.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so the other thing about it, and I really want to encourage people to get on board with the willingness ladder. I think it's a really cool thing. Um, but there is something about that conversation that's a little bit, you know, I think I told you the response from my wife when I tried to do it on her was, "Oh, shut up, you smug twat," or something along those lines. Obviously, she said it far more
My
elegantly than
wife too.
that, but it was
Yeah.
that, stop, it was that kind of thing. But there's something about it which, um, I wonder if it appeals to, you know, I don't know, a particular kind of, not even a debating style, but leading a conversation in that way where you kind of know where it's going and you know it's going to end up over there. Have you come across this appealing to particular people, or have you find that, I know you've run some training courses on it,
Hmm.
does everyone get it? Can everyone kind of learn to do this?
In all honesty, it's been one of the most reliable processes I've taken people through. But I think a lot of that is also that I'm fairly, I've got a lot better as I've got older these days at finding people who are a good fit for my style and approach. So, I'm going to
Right.
speak to someone have a 50-minute initial chat with them before I even take them on as a client. So they get a measure of me. People
Yeah.
have often seen me on my YouTube channel and TikTok. So they kind of get a sense of what
Right.
they're into. So if someone comes, likely they have some psychological orientation,
Okay.
some emotional intelligence, and a willingness to kind of totally challenge their own processes and
Yep.
transform out of the, or be at least willing for me to lead them out of what they think is the solution
Yeah. Yeah.
that they need.
Good.
That they're willing to put me in that driving position. So yeah, but if they're willing to do that, I think it can be immensely useful and very versatile. I've done help people with drug addictions, with its sleeping related issues,
Okay.
pain related issues, not just anxiety.
Okay. That's good to know. So especially on the helping people overcome sleeping issues, it's just such a major issue. So can you give me an example there? What would be the thing I don't want to have? Well, like I don't want to wake up in the night, or I don't want to have a racing mind. What's the kind of thing that comes up?
Right. Well, very simply, if I said to you right now, as an example, if I said, close your eyes and demand to yourself that you have to relax immediately, like, I must relax right now,
Yeah.
likely you'd sit there and, like, oh,
Yeah.
there'd be tension.
It's like being in
But the
yoga.
moment,
I am
right,
relaxed.
yes, exactly. But the moment you were like, well, I'd like to relax, but there's an acceptance that you might not. There's some wiggle room.
Okay.
I must relax. It's absolutistic thinking.
Yeah.
And what I often find is you get people, and here's what happens. For example, And even people that don't have sleep issues relate to this because they go, I don't have sleep related issues, but guess what? If I've got something big the next day, I say to myself, I can sleep normally, but tomorrow I've got this big meeting. I must get a good night's sleep. And
Right.
they go to bed with this absolute mandate of I must sleep.
Right.
And therefore, any experience that comes up that looks like they're not sleeping, they become more tense, they become more triggered because they think that the thoughts and the sensations of I'm not sleeping are somehow threatening.
Yeah.
Whereas
Of
if
all the nights to stay awake. Oh, look, there
absolutely,
it is. It's yeah.
oh, I knew it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew it.
Yeah.
So you get lots of people who they become so resistant to thoughts of not sleeping. Like they have this thought, what if I don't sleep tonight?
Yeah.
And now the thought pops up and they go into tension about it. And then they start interpreting it as though it's true and building up more story around it. But what if, like, they could look forward to the thought of not sleeping because they know the thought has no power over them?
Mm.
Now it wouldn't matter whether it came up. The whole body is still going to go and carry on sleeping naturally like it normally does anyway.
Hmm.
You're helping people literally disconnect thought from feeling or thought from response. And I mean, look, that can be useful in all sorts of contexts, not just obviously sleeping. But put it this way, I had someone who came to see me for anxiety, and they were the one that told me I've been using it for sleep. I wake up in
Right.
the middle of the night, and I, at this point in time, when I was playing around with it, I hadn't thought about using it for sleep. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
She says, I wake up in the middle of the night. I think, oh God, why am I don't want to be woken up here. This is not pleasant. I run through the ladder myself. And I find I just go back to sleep because it
Right.
removes that stress around that situation.
Hmm. So that's really key as well, because the delivery of this, or certainly the way that you deliver it, is as if you are teaching your client how to do it. Um, you're obviously guiding them through the process anyway, but at the end of it, they kind of have this realization, and then you're in part of the encouragement in terms of looking forward to the intrusive thought is that they get to practice. So,
Right.
in your experience, let's say with an anxiety client, is that what's kind of required? Do they actually get into practice, or is it that the revelation they have at the end of this process is sometimes enough to not engage in the old thinking
Right.
style or thinking habit, or is it that they really do need to get it and you know do what you encourage, which is to practice?
The answer is simple. The answer is yes.
Okay.
It can be either way. And I've
Okay.
had some people who go, we just do it. And it's like their, their, their relationship with their thoughts transforms so profoundly in that moment from that
Yep.
realization of, oh,
Yep.
it's like job done. And some people, they really find value in just going, yeah, sometimes when I get a bit anxious or these things that we hadn't even talked about pop up, I go back to the ladder and I run it through and it's like, oh, okay.
Okay.
And, but I'm a huge fan of giving people practical things, self-efficacy, teaching self-efficacy that they can go and apply. And actually, I take no credit for finding new ways to and areas to put it in. It's all come from clients who have contacted me and gone, I know we did it for anxiety, but by the way, I've been using it for this or that,
Yep.
or
Yep.
my junk food addiction,
Yep.
and been really useful. And then I go, oh yeah, I might start doing that with people.
Hmm.
And that's how it's developed. And I've discovered how versatile it can be.
Okay. Well, I think we will wrap up there. Enough to say that I'm a huge fan of this thing. Genuinely finding more and more ways to apply it and integrate it with my work. I'm grateful that you've shared it with the world. And for anyone who's watching this, I would encourage you to check it out. Go find the willingness ladder, and the just one note on the product itself. It's so well produced. I love the way you've put it together. There two, maybe three real demonstrations included, but it's just really well produced. Short little chapters. You get each step. the preliminary work you mentioned to kind of set the scene was really helpful as well. And, you know, just some of the key principles throughout with regard to resistance and willingness are pretty useful principles for life generally. So,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Oh, cheers, buddy. Thank you.
Great. Okay. See you soon. Take care.